Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad that you're joining us this morning. We are going to ask that you mute your microphone so that we don't have any background noise during the presentation. And if you have some questions throughout our presentation with the strategic plan, feel free to put those in the comments. We'll have a section at the end to go over those comments, questions, and make sure that we've answered all of those. And we will also have a Q&A session at the end. Please use the raise hand so that we can call on folks and not have a bunch of people trying to talk at the same time. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to our founder, Dr. Janice Wilkerson.
Thank you, Stacie. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy day to hear more about the strategic planning process and the direction that Covington Partners is taking. If you think back to March 13th, 2020, that's the last day our students were in school full time. That is almost a year that we have had students in school, out of school, doing online school, etc. And the disruptions to their lives has been incredible. We have all experienced this together for sure. But thinking about our students in particular, who sometimes struggle with basic things like food and a place to do homework, it's even more critical that the work of Covington Partners is clear and focused and directed to continue to remove those barriers to student learning. So I'm excited to have everyone joining us today and looking forward myself to seeing the next steps that the team is taking to try to address those needs that we know our students have. Thanks again for being here. Stacie, back to you.
Thank you. So we wanted to start today with our vision and mission. We actually start every meeting just reviewing that. We have it on our agendas, and it's just a good idea just to make sure that we continue to be a mission driven organization. And I know you can read it, but I just want to say our mission out loud, because I think it, just as Janice said, this still resonates today with what we're trying to accomplish with our students and families. And I think it just sets the stage for our conversations moving forward. So our mission is that Covington Partners works every day to keep our community moving forward by eliminating boundaries to learning and success. Through innovation and collaboration, we create a safe, engaging environments for our students and families to learn and grow. And what I love about this mission statement is, one, we can't do this work without our community and our partners. And so we appreciate you being on this journey with us. And what we are trying to do is to eliminate those boundaries to learning and success. And we know that our students come to us with some different challenges. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that just to get us started. As you know, many of you know, we in Covington schools, we have about 3,800 students that come into our buildings or check in online on a regular basis. And that's through our 7 schools, 5 elementary, a middle, and a high school. We also have an early childhood center, James E. Biggs Preschool, and our Transformation Learning Center, we call it TLC, program for our high school students. But take a look at the demographics. 89% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And this is not surprising to folks. We talk about this all the time. But I want to think about this in relationship to what's been happening over the past year. When we look at the numbers in the parentheses, that's in comparison to the Northern Kentucky region. So as a Northern Kentucky region, it's roughly about 53% of our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. In Covington, it fluctuates between 80 to 91%, depending on the year. Additionally, 17% of our students experience homelessness throughout the year. And that is, of course, a broad definition. But what it does mean is that 17% of our students have unstable housing, and many of our students are what we call couch bouncers. They have to move from home to home. Some of them are doubled up. Some of them are living in shelters. Some of our students are living in cars or motels. We have about 10% of our students who live in public housing, 22% that qualify for special education services. We have a growing group of students who English is their second language. And then we have a very diverse group of students, and we see that as an advantage that our students have. We see a lot of great opportunities in having a very diverse population of students who come into our buildings. But there's one thing I want us to remember. Even though our students have some challenges, we believe that 100% of our students are at promise. We just have to eliminate those boundaries that some of them have to see in that success. And it takes a community approach to make that happen. I also want to share some additional data, and I will be happy to send this out to folks, the entire presentation, to those who are in attendance. We are also recording today's session, so if you would like to share that with other folks who are not able to make it, we would love for you to do that. Each year, we take a survey called the KIP survey, the Kentucky Incentives for Prevention survey. And typically, when we look at that survey, at those survey results each year, we were tending to look more at 30-day drug use, particularly with our three substances of cigarettes, alcohol, and marijuana. And we've been doing that all the way back to 1999. This is actually, 2020 was the first year that we were not able to administer that survey for obvious reasons. Although it probably is the year that I wanted to do it the most, but we could not keep the validity of the survey at a high level with the current circumstances. And so we missed the opportunity to do that this year. But I want to share a couple of slides with you. Within that survey, there's a whole host of data that we can look at. But a few years ago, my heart started gravitating to these particular slides and these questions. During the past 30 days, how often did you feel hopeless? And I want to draw your attention to the key there that says the data labels, these are raw numbers, and then the number of students who answered all of the time or most of the time. And so when we look at students over the past few years, the number of our students who felt hopeless are pretty high. I think any child, if that number was 1, that should be concerning for us, that we have a student who feels hopeless in the past 30 days. But as you can see, quite a few of our students in 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade, and that's who we administer the survey to, feel hopeless in the past 30 days. This survey was taken in 2019. When we looked at how often do you feel so depressed that nothing could cheer you up, we see similar numbers, that students are answering all of the time or most of the time. And these are students who are walking through our hallways. This is an anonymous survey, so it's not, we don't have the luxury of knowing who said, who answered the question in this way. But we know that there are a number of our students who are walking through our hallways, who are logging in to NTI this morning, that feel so depressed that nothing could cheer them up. How often in the past 30 days did you feel worthless? And those numbers have shot up quite a bit. And then we also look at what is now the K6 score, which is 6 questions on social and emotional well-being that they combine, and a score of 13 or higher indicates that they have serious psychological distress. So you can see that we are outpacing the region and the state in most of the categories. 10th grade is just a little bit below, but overall, our students are telling us in the past 30 days that they've had serious psychological distress. You know, every year when we do this survey and we see the results, I think to myself, our students are telling us something. They're telling us that they're having some serious issues, whether it be with social and emotional well-being, drug use, violence, that they're giving us responses to indicate that they need some additional services. And so back in 2018, when we started to think about what our next strategic plan would look like, our staff met and we went through a series of exercises to start thinking about what it is that we would like to see for a student who graduates from Holmes High School. When they walk across that graduation stage, what is it that we want to see in those students? And there were 3 big things that came out of those conversations. One, we wanted to see that our students were hopeful, that they felt like the future had good things in store for them. We also wanted them to feel supported, not just by their family and their friends, but by the entire community that would support them and help them be successful in school and in life. And the third thing is we wanted them to be ready to conquer whatever it is that they had for their, what we call the Monday morning plan. So graduation happens on Friday night, and we wanted them to be ready to do whatever that plan was the following Monday morning. So hopeful, supported, and ready. And we brought those 3 words to our initial strategic plan meeting. And when we met, Janice took you back to March of 2020. When we met in the summer of 2019 and started to think about hopeful, supported, and ready, we had no idea what was going to happen in the next 8 to 9 months when we hit March and this global pandemic. So if you think back to those slides that we just looked at of students feeling depressed or students not being able to be cheered up, think about what those data would look like in 2020 if we had been given the chance to do that survey. I'm a little bit scared to think about what those numbers would look like, but I'm so grateful that community members came together and just had the intuition to think about what this plan needed to be, even if a global pandemic came about. And I don't think there's ever been a time where a strategic plan has been more important than what it is right now. And I'm very appreciative of the folks who came to the table and started to think about that. And in terms of a strategic plan, I think that what we created back in 2019 is exactly what we needed in March of 2020 and thereafter. And so I wanted to go through and break down the 3 big parts of our strategic plan. When we came together, we felt the need to start thinking about what individual support for each of our students look like. And so the top priority is that individualized support plan. The second one was that community engagement piece, and that goes straight back to our mission that we really do need a community approach to making sure that our students are successful. And the third was to expand our work-based mentoring program, where we were starting to pilot that initiative and we were seeing some success there. So I'm going to start to break down a little bit of what we are seeing in each of those 3 areas. When we think about our individualized support plan, what we are envisioning is a cycle of providing support that is very specific to each individual student. And we're going to do that first by giving an assessment called the VIA Character Strengths Assessment. And we learned about this work a few years ago when Mary Kay was working with Learning Grove and brought it to the table. And we did some work around this with some of our students. And Ashley McClure actually led that work. And we want to pick that back up and start to use that assessment to create these individualized plans. I have a feeling that this is going to be life-changing for students, and I say that at the risk of sounding pretty dramatic about it, but I want you to think back to those students that we just talked about walking through the hallways, that some of them may be hopeless. Some of them may have an IEP plan, an individualized education plan to help them with some of the different abilities that they may have. Some of those students are feeling hopeless. Some of them are feeling depressed. So imagine going through 2020 with those feelings, and then you come back to school and you get this character or strength assessment, and you are told that you have 24 strengths. Now, they may be in different orders from your peers, but we're going to highlight those top 5 strengths that you have. You're going to learn about the strengths that you have. I think that has the potential to really change the life of a student. And so we're going to create this individual strength plan based on the student's top character strengths. We are going to create monthly check-ins with the student, obviously on a monthly basis, and we're going to monitor the change that we see in the attendance and behavior. And what our prediction is that those grades, attendance, and behavior are going to increase. They're going to improve. We also feel that there's going to be some outcomes that we just didn't predict at the very beginning of this. But what we are now feeling is that when a student's character strengths are outlined for them, when they're highlighted, we think adults are going to start looking at them a little bit differently as well. And they're going to play to the strengths that students have. We actually went through an individual strength assessment as a staff, and it was so interesting to see what our own strengths were, but also to see what the strengths are for our colleagues, and start using those when we communicate with each other and when we start to do the work and implement the work. We feel that has the potential to have great benefits for our students. And this is one of the one of the parts of the strategic plan that I'm most excited about, well, let's be honest, I'm excited about all of it, but the individualized support plan, if we ever had a chance to make it to Oprah, if she still were on air, I think that the individualized support plan would be our avenue. We are actually working with a few folks to be on the beginning stages of a research proposal because of the outcomes that we feel that this will have for our students. We also want to have that community engagement approach, and we talked about that in our mission statement, and it's true for our work moving forward. Never has there been a time where we need to come together as a community, align our resources, be on the same page about our outcomes, and make decisions for the next steps in our community together as one. And so we have been researching different community engagement frameworks to decide what makes the most sense for Covington Partners and, of course, Covington schools. And we really want to start to think about bringing all of the partners together and having this common vision. And I know we all have that common vision already, but it's being intentional about it and getting us all on the same page and moving in the same direction. I oftentimes think of the visual of everyone's in the same boat, but we're all rowing in different directions. A community engagement framework will get us all in the same boat and get us all rowing in the same direction. We want to make sure that we are all accountable to the same data, that we are all working to make sure that our students are and have the potential to be hopeful, supported, and ready by the time that they graduate from high school. And we know that that takes a community approach, and we feel like this community engagement framework will be the way to do that. I think one example of where that is already working is in our Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative. Many years ago, we realized that a few of us were going to multiple meetings throughout the month, talking about different topics related to early childhood, but it was the same folks meeting each time. And so Covington Partners said, let's just all get together, have one big meeting, and tackle all these topics together. The first thing that we did in that collaboration was we put big paper up on the wall, and we had them labeled by month, and we said to our partners, let's all put up what we are doing in terms of early childhood in the month that we are doing it. One of the first things that we realized is that we were doing a lot of great things, but we were doing them in March and October. And so this collaborative approach allowed us to align our resources differently so that we were doing early childhood work throughout the entire year, that we were using funding differently between our partners. And we want to take that example of what we did with that kindergarten readiness group and do that in different groups across the community with different work that we are all trying to do. And we feel like this collaborative action with a shared community vision will lead us into investment and sustainability of our programs and services, not just for Covington Partners, for all of those partners that we are working with. And so we are in the beginning phases of what this framework will look like and beginning conversations with the school district, but be on the lookout for us to start to meet with you individually about how we envision this partnership to look like. And we're really hopeful that you will join us in that journey. The third is to expand our work-based mentoring program. I think that when we look back over the past 8-9 months of how we've had to adapt to in response to the pandemic, most of our out of school time programming had to go virtual, and it's really difficult to take a program that you do every day in person and make it virtual. But we've had to do the same thing with our mentoring program as well. And so this work-based mentoring program we started it with the Salyers group, Fabulous Fur, the Madison, the Hotel Covington. We piloted with them, and we saw some tremendous benefits to our students who were able to participate in that work-based mentoring program. And so what we are hoping to do is to replicate that with local businesses and organizations. We do want them to be, if possible, Covington-based, but they don't have to be. We're just hopeful that we're able to show students all of the career opportunities that are right within their community, or within the region. It is a monthly commitment of 2 hours per month, and we are trying to figure out how we provide those additional connections. What we heard from the Salyers group is it was great having those students come into their workplace, but they felt the need to go and visit them in their school. And so while that's not a requirement, we are trying to figure out how to make that work with our work-based mentors. And what we believe that this can achieve is to build a solid workforce for our Covington students. And as I mentioned, we've had to take mentoring into a virtual mentoring program, which has worked out very well. Kate Andriaco and Crystal Harden and Natalie Westcamp lead our work-based, our mentoring program. Kate Andriaco has taken the lead in our work-based mentoring program, but they have done a fantastic job of moving that program into electronic mentoring on a virtual platform. In the meantime, we're looking at how to do that work with work-based mentoring. But this is a great opportunity for folks to come on board and start thinking about ways that they can develop the workforce for Covington and for our region. And this is not limited to just businesses. We are intentional about an organization, a nonprofit being a part of this work as well, and thinking broadly about all of the careers that are possible within each of those organizations. We have the high school backing this. They love this idea. We have a lot of folks who are very interested in mentoring in this format. And so if you're looking for additional information on that, we encourage you to check out our website and connect with Kate Andriaco. So we have a couple of questions for you in response to into those three big categories that I just mentioned, but that is holistically our strategic plan. We have that plan in detail, and we can share that with you, put it on our website so that you can review it even further. But we have some questions for you. And as I mentioned earlier, if you would like to participate with some comments, please raise your hand, and Ashley is actually going to call on you so that we don't have people trying to talk over each other. So we'll start with the first one. What questions do you have about our strategic plan at this point?
See, Mary Kay has a question.
Go ahead, Mary Kay.
So concerning the mentoring, the work-based mentoring, have you, I know you've with specific companies already, but there are so many new companies coming to the city. Have you worked with economic development at all to kind of help, build those relationships, so to speak, so that you hear about those businesses as soon as, they're able to make it public? Because there's a lot of high school into career opportunities too, and internships that with all of these new jobs that could be coming to the city. So how are you working on that, or what are your plans?
Well, Mary Kay, I think that you've answered one of the next questions on how you can partner with us. We would love that connection with the city and the economic development. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to be on the front end as folks come into the city and start asking how they can be a part of helping our students. Mr. Garrison actually has the idea of starting to think about this in terms of the work the school district does with different contracts and vendors. And so we would love to be a part of that conversation with the city as well. And there is why we need to have this community engagement framework, so that we have these conversations and know what's happening in each other's worlds, so we can connect the dots with each other. That is a great suggestion, Mary Kay, and I would love to talk to you further about that.
Okay, Stacie, we have a question in the chat. What resources do you need most to support the execution of the strategic plan?
Well, I think that there are two big things that we need to execute this strategic plan. One, it requires you, all of you and your organizations, to partner with us. I keep going back to that mission that we are very intentional that this is a community approach to serving our students and families. So first and foremost, we are going to need people, and we are going to need partners, and we're going to need alignment. The second thing is we're definitely going to need funding. We just had a Covington Partners board meeting, and we talked about that, what we are seeing with our students. I shared with them a conversation that I had with one of our elementary school principals. And Janice took us back to March of 2020. If you think about that time, we had kindergartner students in our buildings who had only been in school probably at that point for 6 months. And since then, now they're first graders, they have hardly been in school since then. And that's telling to us. So we always talk about that summer slide that we see with our students during the summer months. We have now a COVID slide and 2 summers of summer slide. So this is a long-term, we are going to have long-term effects to what our students are experiencing for many years. And so we're going to need to double down on our resources, double down on our programming, and that's going to take additional dollars to make that happen. And I think when we come together as a community and we come together in a collaborative approach, we have the opportunity to really seek that funding and get people to invest in the work that we're doing. So people and money are the 2 biggest things.
And then we have a question from John.
I'm not sure if I'm John or Mike. Is it directed to Mike Delaney or John Delaney?
Yes, John Delaney.
Okay. Mike's my middle name that I go by, but that's okay. I clarified that. I'm just curious because we've been involved with one of the elementary schools, 6th District, in 2019 and the first couple of months of 2020, and we were making community connections, not 100% vocationally based, but I'm curious because you're asking how we can be involved. I want to turn the question around and ask, how would you like us to be involved other than what we've been doing? So, and you don't have to answer it today, but that's, based on what we've been doing, where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and one that I think probably, requires some more conversations around it. I think one of the things we have always said this about Covington is that we have some great people wanting to come to the table, wanting to come into our schools and work with our students and our teachers, and that's always been a great advantage that we have in Covington. I think we are resource rich. And one of the unique things that I think happens in Covington is when we come together, no one cares who gets the credit for the work. We just want to make sure the work gets done. I think that what you're asking really falls into that community framework approach where we see what folks can bring to the table and we start talking about how that would work into making sure we are successful with that work. Moving forward, though, I would say we need from partners, one, we need people to make an investment in time with our students. We're going to need additional mentors. We know that the most cost-effective way to make a difference in the life of a child is to spend time with them. And we have that formal mentoring program and opportunity to make that happen. We mentioned work-based mentoring, but we also have an elementary, middle, and high school program that provides the option to do school-based mentoring. And then at the middle school and the high school to also do community-based mentoring. We know that that is going to be needed for more students. We don't keep a waiting list per se for our mentoring program because we don't want students to get their hopes up that a mentor is just around the corner and then it doesn't happen. We also don't, just take the next student in line and match them with the next mentor in line. We want to make sure that we are matching students based on interest and personality so that that match lasts over a course of many years. And so mentoring is the biggest need that we're going to need from our community. We're going to need support from this community, this strategic plan. And so when the time comes for us to start talking to partners to come to the table, we hope that you will accept that invitation and join us. We know that academically, our students are going to be behind, as is every student across the country right now. And so we're going to be expanding our after-school program, our summer program, and we would love additional support for people to come in and help tutor our students and provide that support. And then I know there's going to be other ways that we're going to need to partner, and I think that those are going to organically come up as we strengthen our partnerships with each individual. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Then Stacie, following up with the summer program, you mentioned Angie has asked what we're looking at for numbers, how many students we want to serve this summer.
Yeah, as many of you know that we typically have a pretty robust summer program that has been recognized statewide and nationally for what we see in terms of outcomes and partnerships for our summer program. Typically when our students come to summer program at least 10 times or more, we see summer growth in those students in both reading and math. Last year, we had to adjust our summer program and go to a virtual program. It was called Camp Covington. It was fantastic, but it was virtual and we didn't get to see our students every day, and it was only for 2 weeks. Our preliminary conversations with our principals are telling us that we need to have a very robust summer program, bigger than what we've had in the past. And so we are actually looking to expand that summer program to be 8 weeks. And rather than the 5 weeks, we are looking at our program to be 8 hours a day rather than the 6 hours, 7 to 8 hours a day rather than the 6 hours a day. So we need an all hands on deck approach. This will be much like a typical school day in the morning, and then we want to just really blow it out of the water with some fun programming in the afternoon, but also trying to meet the needs of our students in terms of social emotional support, mental health, and some other programming support that we might need to provide for those students. And so that's going to take, like I said, an all hands on deck approach to working with those students. Typically, we see around 50 to 75, sometimes close to 100, depending on the school, at each of our schools during the summer program. We're hoping to double that with this summer program, and obviously, it depends on what the CDC guidance is at that point, what the health department is telling us to do. But what we're hearing from every single principal and every teacher is that we want our kids in the building. We want to start providing support to them as soon as we can, and we're hoping to do that through the avenue of the summer program. There's something that we talked about this morning at the board meeting, and I'll just talk about it briefly here because I think this is another avenue where our community can support us. If you talk to any teacher right now, they are working their guts out and they are tired. One day they're planning to be in the classroom, the next day they have to switch their plans and be virtual again. They are missing their students. If you go into teaching, you love being in contact with your students, and they are missing their students. They are sad that they don't get to see their kids every day, that they don't get to do the work that they went to school to do. And so mentally our teachers are tired, physically they're tired, but we're going to ask them to keep going through the entire summer. And so one of the things that we would like to do is start providing incentives for our teachers to really help them, really help them to want to, well, not to want to be there, they'll want to be there anyway, but to help them just to incentivize them a little bit and give them an extra thank you for the work that they're doing. Excuse me. And so if you're willing to help out, and we're kind of thinking gift cards or those cheer massages or different treats throughout the week, that just to let teachers know that we're thinking of them, we appreciate their work, and just to give them a little boost to get them through the summer and those long days that they'll have in the summer as well.
All right, we have a couple more questions in the chat from Tara. She would like to know if the work-based mentoring program will connect with the Grow NKY platform that tracks the work-based learning opportunities.
Tara, we would love for that to happen in any avenue that we can connect with. We know that regionally there are some similar initiatives that are similar to our work-based mentoring program. What we know is that, and what we've done in the past is we try to take those regional initiatives that are happening and try to adapt them so they're successful for our students and families. And work-based mentoring is an example of that. We would love to connect with Grow NKY and other initiatives that are happening. And if you're willing to help us out with that, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, Stacie, absolutely. Let's talk about that soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then we have another question for Mary Kay. What plans, goals can we work on together for addressing the children that have not yet registered in the schools, especially those that would normally have registered for pre-K and kindergarten this year, especially thinking about this summer intervention preparation for these students?
Mary Kay, you are always one step ahead of me. You actually will be getting an email today around kindergarten registration, and if you're interested in helping with that work, let me know. But one of the things that we typically try to do when our community is start encouraging families right about this time, start encouraging families to register their student for kindergarten. You would be surprised how many folks don't register their students early for kindergarten. I'm going to tell you, I was guilty of that myself. I did a wonderful job registering my oldest, but by the time the second one came, I just thought they knew that she would be showing up. So families need reminders that kindergarten registration is right around the corner. One of the biggest benefits to that is that we can start to identify students who we can start providing programming to. So the earlier a family registers, the earlier we can start providing services to them to help them be ready for kindergarten. We know about students that are in our preschool, in our James E. Biggs preschool. We know the students who are, in other child care centers around the city. We are most concerned and wanting to connect with the families we don't know about yet. And so we're gonna have to do things a little bit different than we traditionally have done in terms of kindergarten transition and enrollment. So we're gonna be discussing that as a committee. Feel free to connect with me if you would like to join that work. And also if you see little kids, start telling those parents that they need to start registering them for kindergarten and thinking about what those next steps might be. When we can identify who those students are, we can start getting them into programming like what we can do with our summer program. What we're hearing from principals, and this might be different depending on the school, is that if we have to limit the number of students who are coming into our programming, into our summer program, we are likely to target those younger years first. I'll take you back to that first grade, that kindergarten and first grade student now who's only been in school for about 6 months. They should have been in school for 2 years by now. And so we've got a lot of catch up to do with those younger students. And if we have to limit, that's where our target will be. And be on the lookout, Mary Kay, for that email. It's coming, I promise.
And I just want to add to that, Janice made a comment in the chat that, we are aware of many parents that did not send their students to preschool or kindergarten this year due to health concerns surrounding the pandemic. And then, does anyone else have any other questions?
We can hop to our next one. What questions do you have about our programs and services? And I think we answered most of those, but there might be some additional ones specifically to those programs and services. Well, as I mentioned, we are going to take all programming to the next level in the next school year. That includes all of our out-of-time programming, so that's before, after, and summer program. I mentioned that we'll need some additional mentors as we start to think about what support our students are going to need as they transition back to school. We are also going to be, as we always are, very much aware of what the data are telling us. And so as we continue to review the data and get new information, we will again take that KIPP survey. It won't be until October, but I think it's going to be very telling for us what we need to do in response to that. And I think that is another reason why we need to get this framework moving so that community partners, we're all on the same page. We're all looking at that data and making decisions about what our response needs to be. And so now more than ever, I keep saying this, but that's why this plan is so important right now. The data are going to keep telling us what we need to do, and we'll continue to monitor that and increase programs and services as we need to. So I'm going to turn it over to some of you. how would you and your organization like to work with us or help us promote the work through the strategic plan?
Jamila from the center commented that they're also doing work surrounding VIA Character Strengths as an out-of-school time program, and they'd love to talk more about that partnership on a broader scale.
That would be fantastic. You know, I mentioned us thinking about what teachers and staff might see when students start to identify their strengths. I think it's going to be really important for all of our partners to understand what those strengths are about each student and how we can use those strengths. So I'm excited to hear that, Jamila. Thank you. Ashley, we could go back to education days and start calling on people randomly if you would like to. You're a former teacher.
I'll just make a comment. I think that personal ask is a good way to get people involved, to be invited. Maybe you think someone would be a good mentor. I know that, you know, my husband Chuck Shepard is involved with Bexion Pharmaceuticals, and I know several people there are mentors. I've also had friends who I have invited to be mentors, or, you know, it sounds like this summer, if people aren't comfortable with mentoring, maybe they would like to do some tutoring, or maybe, you know, some teachers who are retired and could give a few hours a week. But I really think that personal invitation can be very effective sometimes. If people at your church or other organizations you belong to.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. And we are happy to take this show on the road if you need us to, or I guess on a Zoom or virtual meeting to talk about our mentoring program or any of our programs and services to help your organization or business think about how you could potentially be involved. There are lots of different initiatives that we have through Covington Partners that may fit right into your business or organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tara would like to explore how we can make sure we're connecting Covington parents with all of the resources available through the Career Center. And I think she's going to speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tara, please.
Just per Angie's request. So I know I don't know a lot of you, and I just want to say thanks to Carissa for forwarding this event to me. It's just been a great learning experience for me. I know Stacie from my days at United Way, but I'm with the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board. We fund the Career Center network in Northern Kentucky, including the one located on Madison Avenue in Covington, and we were just having a conversation yesterday about how can we make sure that everybody in Covington's aware of all the different services that are available. They're available virtually as well across the region, but we are open at the Madison Avenue location, and we are doing some in-person appointments. And so there's a number of programs. There's one at City Heights that's very specific to residents there. There's just a number of things. And so as we think about that like whole family approach, I do think it would be really good, Stacie, for us to just have a conversation about how do we make sure that the families, you know, we don't have a lot of funding for in-school youth, unfortunately. We used to, but the federal funding laws kind of changed a little bit. So we're really focused on youth that have exited the school, so like 18 to 24-year-olds. But I do think it would be really good to just at least make sure that the families are aware of the resources that are available to them at no cost. So that was all I was going to say.
Thank you. And one of the things I should have mentioned when we think about that community engagement framework, it is a pipeline of support from the time a child is born until the time they enter their career and beyond. And so Covington Partners, we're not the experts on from early childhood all the way to career and beyond, but we have such amazing partners like what Tara was mentioning that are the experts in those different areas. And so what that community engagement framework will give us, and it's very specific to what Covington students and families need, is that pipeline of support with those soft handoffs in each phase of their life. And so we're grateful that we have other folks taking the lead in other phases of the child's life and their adults' lives. But that intentional framework of support is what that coordination of services is what we're looking for, so that we can get our students hopeful, supported, and ready, and hand them off softly to Tara, and she, her organization can take them even further. But I just wanted to mention that because all of our work is going to link together through that framework, and it's just going to, I think, enhance all the work that we're doing with each other, but certainly enhance the lives of the people that we're working with.
Yeah, and Dave from the Kenton County Public Library also mentioned that they're working on their strategic plan soon, and partnerships will be a part of that. And they'll continue to do whatever they can to support the schools. And they recently hired a school services coordinator who is working with Covington schools.
Fantastic. Yeah, the library has always been a great partner of ours. And I will say that when we look at that summer data, when we see that summer growth in reading and math, we know that the Kenton County Library had a big play in that, because they bring the library to us, to our schools every day, and are engaging our students differently than what teachers and our other staff are doing. So we certainly appreciate that partnership. Thank you.
Then we have a couple people with their hand raised. Janice.
Thanks, Ashley. I actually just put my question in the chat. Stacie, you mentioned that your team of staff members completed the VIA character strength survey on their as part of your work. How can other organizations or departments complete that with their staff members? Is there a cost to that? How might that work?
I'm going to actually hand that back over to Ashley or Mollenkamp. She's also leading the work in the individual strength plan. I'm going to let them answer that.
So VIA survey is completely free of charge. So you can just go to the values in action is what VIA stands for, character strength survey, their website. And on that site, you register and you can take the survey for free. It just takes a few minutes, about 15 minutes of your time. And then after you complete the survey, you receive the report of the 24 character strengths in order. Your top 5 strengths are kind of your core strengths that you use on a day-to-day basis. And Natalie just posted the website. Thank you, Natalie. viacharacter.org is the site. So your top 5 strengths are your core character strengths. And it is, I've taken the survey for several years now, and every time I take the survey, my top 5 are pretty similar. Sometimes my, 5th strength might move down to number 7, and number 6 might move up to number 4, but your top 5 strengths are really kind of your core strengths that you live by. You typically will not see something that is in the bottom, your 24th strength will not all of a sudden become your first strength. So it's very interesting to see that, and then how they play with each other. When we took it with the other members of Covington Partners staff, we really took a dive into looking at how we can work with each other and what those character strengths mean to our working styles and our individual strengths, and then what that also means as a team. So I would encourage everyone to take the survey. I think it's very helpful personally and professionally.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks a lot.
And I think Mary Kay had a question also asking about if Navigo is still involved with Covington schools.
I'm actually meeting with Navigo on Wednesday to discuss some options for next steps. And I hope, that through this conversation, I hope when I turn off my camera and get into my emails, I am flooded with folks reaching out and saying, I'd love to meet, and talk about next steps with the strategic plan in your area of work. We are certainly willing to have as many conversations or meetings as we need to make sure that we're aligned, and that we're being efficient with our resources, and really being thoughtful about what those next steps are with each of the partners. So we did a little bit of research, and realized that 90 minutes for a virtual meeting is a bit too long. And so we're going to keep this to an hour. We know people are zoomed out with virtual meetings right now. And so I am going to just advance the slides to any other questions that folks might have in terms of the strategic plan or our work. And then I'm going to hand it over to our chair, Dr. Carissa Schutzman.
I'll just note that in the chat box, both Julie Mullenkamp and Kate Andriaco left their contact information. If anyone has questions about the individual support plan, they can feel free to reach out to Julie. She's taking the lead on that. And then Kate Andriaco is our lead for mentoring, and specifically work-based mentoring, and her contact information is there also.
All right, Carissa, I think you're on.
Thank you so much, Stacie. And just before you all get ready to leave at 11, Stacie told me that I had from 11 to 11:30. So no, thank you so much for attending today. The work that Covington Partners has done for over 20 years now is the kind of work that is good for all students. And I think that these types of support programs that function throughout the school year as well as during the summer months, they're becoming more and more vital to be a regular part of a school children's days, that they need these kinds of supports and opportunities. And especially when you look around at the mental health issues that Stacie pointed out early in the presentation, that takes a whole community to step in and assist and support those students. I also want to point out that Stacie and her staff are very humble. The board, and I say this on behalf of the board, that we are so grateful to be a part of this nonprofit. Stacie and her staff work tirelessly. They have tremendous passion around the work. And one of the things, sometimes from the board perspective, when we are working on an initiative, Stacie is the first one to say, don't ever not pursue or push an initiative because you might be worried about the staff. She said, we are always on board and ready to move forward. And I have just found that to be true in my 5 years on the board. And I'm so appreciative of all that they do in Stacie's leadership. And last but not least, Stacie and her team do a phenomenal job of keeping the strategic plan as a living, working document. It is not a document that they throw on the shelf and say, yeah, we'll look at that in 2024. It guides their, pardon me, it guides their daily work. And because of the way they have implemented the strategic plan, having no idea in 2019 what would be happening in 2020, I do think that helped them pivot quickly and to start making the adjustments they needed to make to serve Covington children. And when you look at those three areas of the individualized support plan, the community engagement, and the work-based learning, those are things that can happen at any point in a child's life and make a difference. So they really look at the full spectrum of K through 12 and regardless of the context, if we're in a pandemic or we're not in a pandemic, they're going to make those opportunities happen for Covington children. So I think that the ask was clear from Stacie throughout the conversation, and it was wonderful to hear your all's questions and thoughts about how we can partner. Where is it that your strategic plan and our strategic plan, where is that overlap so that we can collaborate and find common ground? And I think that if we have to give an MVP for ideas, Mary Kay Connolly, amazing ideas, and thank you so much for stepping up and being willing to partner so quickly. And that goes for all of you on the call. Thank you, and we really look forward. I think Stacie, I wrote this down when she said it, be on the lookout for us to connect with you. That was a quote unquote. So I think you need to know when Stacie says be on the lookout, you need to be on the lookout. I mean, you need to check over your shoulder in the parking lot because Stacie will be popping out with an idea on how that she and her team and our board can collaborate with you. So thank you again for your time today. Much appreciated.
All right, thank you, Carissa, and thank you to all of you who participated with us today. If you have further questions, please reach out. But we're going to give you back 30 minutes in your day. I don't think anybody will be disappointed with that. And we appreciate your participation and willingness to partner with us. As I said earlier, there's never been a time that our students have needed us more. And I'm excited to work with you to close those gaps, but to provide the support that our students and families need. Thank you.